Hey everyone, it's that time of the week again. It's TK Friday. The title of today's episode is Reviving a Dull Image. Hello everyone and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's TK Friday, my favorite day of the week, and I hope it is yours too. And I had a lot of comments last week, so thank you about the notes. So I guess I will continue to provide the notes. So thanks for responding and continue to comment. It really helps my channel. Like, subscribe, share. It's all beneficial to helping this channel to grow. And also it's great for our community here on TK Fridays. We can all share with each other and help each other out. So thank you for all your comments, questions, and kind words. Thank you very much. And before we start, I just want to mention, if you don't yet have the TK8 plugin for Photoshop, I'll have my affiliate link in the description below this video. You can click on it. It'll take you to the TK8 store where you can purchase the TK8 plugin for Photoshop. And I highly recommend the TK8 combo. It's a little bit more, but you get the TK8 video guide along with it. There's training videos there that you can pick up. And the good thing is you can save 15% off everything at the TK8 store by using my promo code DK15. You'll save 15% off your entire purchase. And as I said, everyone, I am providing notes now. Now, the way these notes work, just read across the notes, okay? And I have a lot of pictures. You know, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So just follow the pictures. So you can see here, for the first step, I'm using balance and contrast. I'm using a midtones 3. This is what the mask looks like. This is what you click on to output it to a color grading tool. And these are the settings I've used for the color grading tool. This note says I skipped the highlight adjustment because I felt it was okay. So all the different steps, just start from the left and follow them to the right, and then just go down and go that way. I think it makes sense, and this is how I make the video, watching these notes, and it really helps me out. And so these are the notes that I go by when making the video, and now hopefully they'll help you as well. Okay, now let's get started. By the way, you can download this image. This is just a stock image from unsplash.com. I left a link in the description below the video. Just click on that link and you'll be able to download this image and follow along with me. The first thing that I want to do is not in the notes, but it's just to get rid of this dead grass down in this area, and over here there's a little piece of grass. So grab your lasso tool, just type L in your keyboard, and we're just going to lasso right around here. I'm just working off the background layer. I don't usually recommend that, but it works really okay for this image here. And now hold your shift key down in this piece of dead grass over here. Let's just kind of grab that one as well. And this is nice on the CX or combo panel. You can click this red button right here, and that opens up your field dialog. Now right now it's on contents of foreground. You have all kind of different options in here, so click on this drop down menu, and what we want is content aware. Click on that, okay, and that will go ahead and fill that in, and then we can deselect our selection by clicking right here on the combo or CX panel. And you know, that's good. I think that's going to be fine. Actually, no, on second look, I don't like right here, so I'm just going to grab my lasso tool and grab around this area. It looks a little bit funky to me, and click that same red button, and it's still set on content aware. Click OK. And now let me deselect the selection and take another look. Don't do this one. This one hides the marching ants, but it keeps the selection. In other words, watch that selection. When I click on that, you don't see the marching ants, but look, I still have a selection indicator. So click it again, you'll see them. So they're there. Don't be fooled. It's this one right here. Okay, and that does look better, and I am happy. And from this point on, it is all in the notes. So the first thing I want to do is come up and click on this luminosity mask button right here, and just simply click on number 3 here on the bottom. This is for mids 3. It just provides a midtones 3 luminosity mask, which just protects us from clipping highlights or shadows. It's just a protection measure, and that's it. And then what we want to do is simply click right here, and that outputs this to a color grading tool. And on this particular image, I'm just trying to balance it out and add some contrast to it. And the first thing I want to do is click on the black block, which is for the shadows, obviously. And I'm just going to pull the shadows back to somewhere like right around here. And already it's looking better. And next I'll click on the midtones block, and we'll work on the midtones. I usually open up the midtones for most images, but on this one, I think I'm going to darken up the midtones a little bit, like right around here. But I also want to warm up the highlights. I think it's going to help. And so I'm just going to drag this up to right around. Yeah, look at that. Isn't that nice? That little bit of warmth. Here is the before and here's the after. Now, I did not touch the highlights because I felt the highlights were okay. But I want to zoom in here. Now, this is a stock image, like I said. And there is like a white line along the edge here. I don't know. Maybe they replaced the sky. Maybe it's just an issue that happens in the download because, again, it is a stock JPEG image, okay? So it's not a super high quality image by no stretch of the imagination, but I'm going to show you how we can fix that later on, so you don't want to miss that. I know I have a lot of comments. How do you fix those white edges along like skies and foregrounds when we're making adjustments? Sometimes they will come, but I'll show you how we can fix that very easily on this tutorial. So stay tuned for that. I just really love this color grading tool, and to me this is a great starting point to add balance and contrast to your image. It helps me to get focused and centered and decide which way I want to take a particular image. If you enjoy the color grading tool, let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. The next thing I want to work on is the sky. So I'm going to save out a sky selection because we're going to be using it later on. To save out the sky, click on this button on the CX or combo panel, and then Photoshop will select your sky. And then you want to save it as a channel. So click this icon right here or this button on the CX or combo, and let's just call it sky. Not D, Dave, S-K-Y, sky, and click OK. And now you'll notice it's right down here in your channels palette saved as a channel. And now click here to deselect your selection. Now the next step is to work on the sky. So let's X out of this color grading tool and let's come up here and click on My Channels. Click on Sky. Now we're going to need the mask calculator, so click on the mask calculator and click the X for intersect. I haven't done this in a while, but we're going to make an intersection. Then let's go ahead and X out of here. We're going to click on the luminosity mask icon. We're going to go for mids 3 because I'm going to work on the sky, and I'm just using mids 3 to protect the sky from clipping. And next we'll click equals, and now you'll notice we have that mids 3 in the sky only. Now we're going to output it to a color grading tool. And now we're going to adjust the sky. To me, the sky just seems a little too light, so I'm going to click on the mid-tone block and just start to drag this to the left, just to darken it up. And I think right there, but I also want to shift these midtones into more blue, just to enrich that blue sky color. And yeah, I think that looks really good. Here's the before and here's the after. For the next step, I think I want to close off the sky. And then after I do that, I want to close off the foreground. And what I mean by that is just to darken it on the top and bottom, just to keep our attention in the center of the frame where these cool hay bales and these distant hills are at. I think it'll help. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and X out of this color grading tool. And I want to add a curves adjustment. I'm going to change it to the multiply blend mode. I always use this to darken things up. Okay, now I just want to hide that adjustment. So to hide it, I'm going to click this black button. So that puts a black hide all mask on there. I'm going to make sure my paint swatches have white on top and black on bottom. If they don't, you can click this little, these arrows here and you can flip them around, but you want white on top, black on bottom. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this properties panel just to get it out of the way. And then we want to get our gradient tool. Depending how your Photoshop is set up, your tool palette may be in a different location, but you want to click on this gradient tool icon here. And the shortcut for that is G, by the way. I'm going to hold my shift key down and I'm just going above the canvas and dragging down like this. To right around here, holding the shift key just makes that line stay straight. And then I'm going to release the left click of my mouse and there's my gradient. Now if you want it longer or if you want more of a fade here, we can go back up here, hold the shift key down and try it again. Let's just go down further and release it. And yeah, I think I like that. Now if it's too strong, you can take the opacity and pull it back a little bit. And I think I may do that. And I think I'm going back to about 68% according to my notes. And yeah, that's what my notes say. Now, the reason I made you shift this swatches to the white on top, if I would have did it with black on top, it would have been white down here and black up here, but that's not what we want. We want to show that darkening on the top. Well, that was fun, hopefully. Now let's try it again. So let's do the same thing. Let's grab a curves adjustment layer. Let's change it to the multiply blend mode. Let's hide it, because right now the image just looks dark and I don't like it, so we're going to hide it. And now let's go and grab the gradient tool, which I'm already on it. But this time I want to be outside of the canvas and hold my shift key down and drag up from the bottom. And I think somewhere right about here. And see how that darkens off the bottom, and I like that. It kind of adds some depth and dimension into the image. I don't know, it makes you look like you're going in for some reason. At least it does to me. And then I'm going to take, what did I do with the opacity? Did I drag it back? Yes, I did. I felt it was too dark, so I went back to like 56. Okay, so let's check it out. Here is the before and here's the after, but that closes off the top and bottom of the image, keeping us in the frame, and it keeps us focused in the center where all the really cool bales of hay and the distant hills are, and I really like it. I'm going to close this properties panel, and now it's time, I'm going to zoom way into this image. Now it's time to work on this line that is here. So let's fix that. So how are we going to do that? I'll be using a clone stamp tool, but the first thing we want to do is put a blank pixel layer above here. And to get one, we can click right here in the CX or combo panel. That'll give us a blank pixel layer. And then we're going to go up to My Channels. And remember, we saved a sky channel, so click on your sky channel. Then we want to output it as a selection. So click right here, and now we have a selection. We don't see it because it's hidden right now, but you can see here by the selection indicator that we do have a selection. Now, I want to expand that selection. So we want to click on this button on the CX or combo panel to expand the selection, and now expand it by 2 pixels. I experimented and that worked the best, and click OK. When we do, we can see that line comes back, the marching ant line. So we want to hide that. Click this icon here to hide the marching ant, but you'll notice we still have a selection. The selection's just hidden at this point. Now we need to get a clone stamp tool, so we can click on our clone stamp tool or type the shortcut key S for it. Make sure in the menu bar where it says sample, make sure all layers is set here. If you click on the drop down, you have different choices, but you want to make sure all layers is checked on. I'm also using 100% opacity, so I'm just going to get a very small brush. It may look bigger due to my editing software here. I'm going to hold my Option or Alt key down and sample a point like right about here, close, like right here. And then all we need to do is I'm going to come to the edge and we can start and paint away, okay? We can resample as we go if we need to. In fact, I'm going to resample right here so I have my cross right above what I'm actually doing. And I'm just going to go and paint, and take your time, but just paint along here. And I'll finish this up, but just do it and it will totally eliminate that line for you. I'll paint a little bit more up into this area right in here. If you hold your space bar, you'll get your hand tool, and we can just come right along here. There's a little fence there, but I'm not really caring about that so much. It's not going to really matter. But see how I can just paint that off? Very simple and very easy. In a second or two here, I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video just because it, takes a little while. But you want to take your time and get this right. So at this point, I've sped up the video here, and I'm just going to continue to go across here. If you need to move your image, you can hold your space bar down and you'll get your hand tool. And then you can just keep moving through here. Okay, and I'm just like moving along here and just cleaning up this line on the edge. But take your time and get it right. You can resample areas if you need to. But the idea here is you want to keep the sample point close to the area that you're cloning so everything kind of works out for you. Okay, so that's very important here. Okay, and you'll notice that the little cross is like right above the tool. And there we go. Let's take a look at our handiwork. Here is the before, and here is the after. Let me go ahead and zoom in so you can really see. Okay, so here is the before, here is the after, so it's gone. Let me move over this way. Here is the before, here is the after. But you see how that nicely, 2 pixels just shaves into that image before and after. And I'm going to click on this icon that puts us back to full screen here, fit to screen, I should say. But there we go. That's how we can clean up a line along the edge of the sky meeting the foreground. For the next step, and I don't have this listed, but we have a selection here, so let's get rid of this selection by clicking on this icon right here. It's very important a lot of times that you remove a selection because we don't see the marching ants. A lot of times they're hidden, but whenever you have that selection indicator, you know you have a selection. So a lot of times you want to make sure you clear out those selections before you start your next step. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but a lot of times it really does. For this next step, I want to slightly blur the clouds, and I mean slightly, just to give them a little extra softness. I think that's really going to help. In past videos, I showed you how to use a inverted clarity action to soften clouds. Today, I'm going to show you another method. You know, in Photoshop, there's many ways of getting the same job done, but let me show you a different way. This will be step 6 in the notes. Now, we have to stamp this image into a pixel layer to get this next step. To do that, you want to click this icon on the CX or combo panel. That will stamp your image into a new layer. In other words, all these adjustments will get combined. To use this particular filter, we need to do this. The next thing you want to do is come up to Filter. You want to come into Blur, and then you want to go to Lens Blur and click that. And now Lens Blur will open up. This is a really good filter, by the way, but I want you to notice something here. On the right side of the interface, you see where it says Depth Map Source? Click on this drop-down menu here, and you have different choices here: None, Transparency, Layer Mask, or Sky. By default, for me anyway, it has chosen Sky. If it hasn't chosen Sky for you, click on Sky. And basically what that means, remember we saved out that channel as Sky? It's picking that. Now it's blurring the sky. Now I'm not getting real in depth into this filter, but all we're going to work with is this radius. And all I'm using is, I have a radius of 13. Now, if you feel that's too much blur, we can change it. But this filter is nice if you need a lot of blur. Watch how much blur I can really get out of this. So we can get a super amount of blur. And this simulates an actual camera lens, which is really nice. And on my notes, I have 13, but I might even take it back a little lower, maybe to 11. And it just gives me like a slight blur. And I just like just a little bit of softness in the clouds. I don't want it super blurry. I might even take it back even more to maybe like a 9. It's just giving me a very soft blur. Now in my notes, it's 13, but experiment. If you like 13, use it or change it to whatever you like. But I'm going to choose 9 here. I think it's good. And then all we need to do at this point is click OK, and that'll send us back into Photoshop. Now check it out. Here is the before. And it's hard to see at this distance, and here is the after. But it's a slight blur. Let me go ahead and zoom way in so you can actually see it here. So here it is. Here is the before, and here's the after. But it's a really nice soft blur. Now that clarity action would have worked as well for you, that reverse clarity action. But I just wanted to show you another way, like I said. But if you need a lot of blur, this is going to give it to you. Now, it just doesn't work for skies. It'll work for any part of the image that you want. But the depth map was the reason it only worked on the sky. It used the sky. So that is pretty cool about that lens blur filter. The next thing I'm doing, I'm noticing this hill back here is a little too light. So I want to pick some of the lighter areas and darken them. Now, a really quick way to darken things is to get a curves adjustment, change it to a multiply blend mode. We can go ahead and hide the properties panel because we're not going to really be using the curve there. We're just using it to get a multiply blend mode. Let's put a black mask on here by clicking on the CX or combo panel with the black icon or the black button. That hides our adjustment. So let's click on the zone mask icon, and I'm going to pick a light area like right up in here somewhere, some area that's kind of light, and click OK. Now let's go ahead and adjust this. I'm going to take the brightness slider and drag it to the right, the whole way over to the right to lighten it as much as I can. And let's just tighten it just slightly, maybe right around here. And I have a big problem here because that sky is selected a lot and I don't want it selected. So let's click on the mask calculator. I love the mask calculator. I hope you do too. Let me know in the comment section below if you do. And don't be intimidated by it because it's not that hard once you really learn how to use it. Let's click negative because we want to subtract the sky. Let's X out of here. Then let's click on the My Channels and load up the sky because we're subtracting it, right? Now we can click the equals button. And now we're only affecting the foreground, right? And we want to output this to a black mask, white brush, painting through a selection. We're going to paint this area on just the way we want it. We're going to be the artist and just paint it as dark as we want it. I'm using an opacity of 20%. I like to use the shortcut key of 2 to give me 20%. And I can have a fairly decent sized brush here. And all I'm going to do is, I'm not lifting the brush. I'm just painting along this area right here. Anywhere I want it to darken in this area back in here. And I can be sloppy here because I have a mask to control this all for me. Okay? I might hit this one more time here and over in here again. And then over here, it's a little light. I'm going to hit this a couple times here as well, and maybe down into here, and maybe a couple times right there. And now let's take a look. Here is the before, and here's the after. If you want to take a look at what your mask looks like that you've created, click this double arrow icon, and you can see it right there. Isn't that cool? But that's that step. Now let's get rid of the selection before we move on to our next step. I did not mark this down in my notes, so just remember after each step, if there's a selection, click this icon and get rid of it. The next step is easy. Come up to the color grading tool icon, give it a click. Now you must click the plus to add it here. All I'm doing is coming to the midtone block, clicking on it, and just taking the gray block and dragging it into the warmer tones, like right here, and just warming up the overall image. Even the sky, it doesn't affect the sky that much, but check it out. Here is the before, and here's the after. But I like it, just a little bit of a slight warming. And if it's too much, you could like drag it back just a little bit. But again, before, and here is the after. Now the next step is to bring out some of the shadows in these hay bales. I think it'll just define them a little bit and cause our eyes to go to them. So let's X out of the color grading tool and let's click on the zone mask icon right here. And we're going to click some of the darker tones in the hay bale. Like maybe right around here, I think will be good. Click OK. Now let's refine this a little bit. Let's drag the highlight slider the whole way over to the right, and let's tighten up that selection by coming right about in here, and I think that looks pretty good. Now let's output it. I want to burn to darken the shadows, so we're going to click on the left side of this burn icon. We click that. We're going to be painting through a selection. You can see my selection indicator. It's a soft light blend mode on a 50% gray layer. I want to have my brush opacity at 50%, so I'm going to type my 5 key. And I'm just going to start painting on these hay bales. Now I'm using a Wacom tablet and pen, but you see that first hay bale? And I'm just going to hit all these hay bales here, and all those dark areas will get darker. So we can just come across here. Now, if you lift your brush and paint again, they'll get even darker. So I lifted a couple times in here. I'm going to come over on this hay bale. I'm lifting it a couple times, painting it in here, coming back in. All these hay bales. Let's get these guys over here. We don't want them to be left out, do we? They'll get upset with us. We don't want that. Okay, so here I'm just going to paint on this foreground hay bale one more time. Okay, so let's take a look. Here is the before. And here is the after. Isn't that cool? And if we want to see what this layer looks like, if you hold your Option or Alt key down and click on the eye, you can see it. Isn't that cool? Just like that, we've darkened those hay bales. Now we have a selection here, so let's go ahead and deselect. There's only 2 more steps to go. We're almost there. Okay, we're on step 10. We're going to lighten the overall midtones. Let's click on the luminosity mask. We're going to use a midtones 1 to lighten with. This is a really great way of lightening up just your midtones. It targets midtones only. We're going to output that to a curves adjustment layer. We're not going to use the curve, so we can get out of the properties panel here. Change our blend mode from normal to screen. Now check it out. Here is the before and here's the after, but it's only the midtones. But I think it's a little strong, so I ended up taking the opacity and pulling it back to like 70%. So here is the before and here's the after. Just a nice lightening to this overall rural pastoral scene. I really like the soft calmness of this image. And at this point, we could be done, but this is a good time to experiment. This is a good time to go into the TK actions and maybe find something that we could use. And this was a suggestion by Tony when we were going over this video. And he said, hey, Dave, try a Smart Orton on here. So I said, okay, Tony, let me give it a shot here. Okay, so Smart Orton is right here. So I'm going to click on Smart Orton and let it do its thing. Gaussian blur, I'm just going to click OK. Okay, and that looks nice. Here is a before and here is an after. Now, Tony suggested a Smart Orton. A lot of times looks good with like a Midtones 2 mask on it, on the actual group itself. So let's come up to the luminosity masks. And let's try a Midtones 2. And then all we need to do is output it to that layer by clicking on this icon right here. And yeah, look how that just really tones that up nicely. Here's the before and here's the after. Now, I think it's a little bit too strong, so let's take our opacity and start to pull it back. And I ended up with like around a 71%. Here is the before, and here is after. But it's nice. Notice the foreground here. I don't have it on right now, but watch this foreground. It seems to like pull you into the foreground, right? It gets a little more contrast there in the foreground. Isn't that cool? So there we go. Now let's take a look where we've come from. I'm going to use my before and after action. Here's the overall before. So remember, this was called reviving a dull image. So you'd have to admit it's kind of dull looking, right? But check it out after all our adjustments. Here's the after. So there you go. Well, there it is, everyone. Hey, and we didn't even need a vignette because we closed off the top and the bottom of the image, keeping us into the frame. So that was nice. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe and click that bell notification icon. And then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today on The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. And I'll see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing.